Hi guys! In this video we are going to recreate World of Warcraft's super amazing epic weapon called Voidsong Stave of the Harbinger. I just randomly saw it in some World of Warcraft video and then I wanted to get it in game so much. Made some research, seems like it can be found at trading post. Let's go! Hey wait, where's my stave? Dang, it's not available in game anymore, but seems like I have a plan. And in the end, it will be mine. Let's get some references from Wowhead and it's time to start. And now we are starting our 3D modeling in Blender. I created a vertex and going to outline all the base forms. Vertex by vertex, I find it the easiest way to get everything correct and it's pretty easy. Also, I'm going to use a little bit more polish than the original weapon had, because we are doing this for fun and I want it to be looking very nicely. And when all the vertices are done, we can fill all the forms with the faces. In Blender you just need to select vertices and press F. Easiest 3D modeling in my life. Select all the inner faces, move them forward a bit and our void part is done. Let's place our pivot in the center and mirror the second part of the blade. Adjust the forms a little bit. Creating cylinder for our middle part, moving it, extruding it and extruding the gem part, and I'm creating a very rounded sphere for the correct sizes I want to make for our gem. When the forms are done, I can remove this sphere, so it's like a reference. Adding a spike with my favorite vertices and a knife tool for some cuts. Creating a cylinder for our stave base and extruding it, adding couple edges here and there, moving a little bit, extruding, more edges. It's super easy and super fast. I'm using only 8 vertices cylinder and it should be more than enough for nice forms here. Creating a nicely rounded cylinder for the lower detail, edge in the middle, setting it on the mirror and doing the same like we did with the upper gem detail, moving a little bit, extruding here and there and getting nice forms for the gem. Creating couple more vertices for that triangle detail and filling them with faces. Adding some small spike here and now a bit of knife tool actions for couple cuts and extrude a last spike. And the last detail is this small ring that's going to hold our chain. UV maps. I'm going to mark them only that small ring part and everything else we have on the mirror. I'm also using Auto UV Grid add-on to add the UV checker just with one button. Rotating the handle part on 45 degrees to use as much as possible space for it, and putting everything together starting with the bigger forms and 2 smaller forms. Just 5 minutes and UV maps are done. And now my favorite part, time for texturing in 3D code. I filled the colors with the fill tool and now I created a new layer and adding some more colors in the middle, and same for our second blade part, using the hard brush and 100 opacity. And now it's time for color blending. I created a new layer, I'm still using the hard brush and I'm mixing couple colors together, like some brighter ones, darker ones, getting some light information on our surface. like and darker on the lower parts and more bright shiny on upper parts, and where we have the white that hits the surface. But we have a nice reference, so it's 10 times easier. But yeah, for this thing you can imagine just where the directional light is placed and how it shines, and then you can paint easily those lighter and darker parts. And to nicely blend the color, I just picking by pressing V and then mixing those colors together using my pen pressure, and doing this a lot of times. Just pressing V, mixing colors, blending colors, pressing V, and so on, like from darker to lighter. And if you want to see maybe more detailed video about color blending, you can check it on my channel. I have a color blending for beginners. Doing the same thing for the gem, but with a bit of soft brush. With the soft brush I'm adding glossiness and reflection base colors that we gonna polish later on. And the next stage for our textures is the line art. So I created a new layer and we are going to paint all the dark lines, like those ornaments, all the separations, some damage and so on, like everything that is painted with the very dark thing. Holding shift if you want to draw a straight line. And now we are doing the same line art for our second part of the blade, and the ornaments, they can be pretty rough at the first, then we can polish them a little bit, and doing some details on the handle, like painting the separations, painting some ornaments on the handle, more details on the leather, and straight lines, holding the shift. Now we are going to paint some bevels. It's pretty unique thing and not every object have them, but in our case we gonna paint them here. And if you can split your WoW object on different pipeline steps, then you will not have any issues painting it, and you always can get back to adjust whatever you need. And I always on the stage of line art painting all the scratches, dents and the damage that I want to see here. Next stage are the highlights. All the bright lines where the light hits the corners and angles of our model. Brighter for upper surfaces and less bright for lower ones, and making them more like bounce light. It's also not the final stage for highlights. Later on we're going to polish them and add some color dodge pass. Make sure you're using your pen pressure nicely to draw different opacity and your highlights isn't all the same size. Your metal highlights should be more shiny where the light hits the most, while a leather material will be super soft and not shiny at all. It's almost always nice to have a bit different hue and saturation for your highlights to make your textures look more juicy and interesting. By the way, if you like my videos and want to support me on this path, please guys, left a comment under this video. It helps with YouTube algorithms and I hope more people can find and watch it. I will appreciate it a lot. And don't forget to grab some of my courses and mentorship. And now let's get back to painting more highlights. And don't forget to use your pen pressure as I do for my highlights, and doing these pointy, shiny areas for the difference of the material, like it's a metal against a gold and it shines a bit more and not that soft, and I always try to do this pointy, shiny highlights on the areas where we have the light. And same for this part. I'm not changing the color, just almost at all, and it's all the pen pressure, but for darker one I go with a little bit darker color and then also using the pen pressure. That's all the trick for my paintings. Color blending, line art and the highlights are the most time consuming process in my pipeline. And once those are done, you're just chilling with polishing very less steps. And in the situations where we need straight lines, we can just press shift and you can draw the super straight line, and it's very easy and pretty helpful to get some nice lines, but of course using your pen pressure, so some of the areas will be more shiny and some's not. And here I am doing some surface shine, and it's not final and I want it to be a little bit soft, so I also using the eraser tool with the soft brush to adjust it a little bit, and later on we're gonna make it shiny, more shiny. And some darker colors for part of the handle. This is our leather, and I'm removing it from some of the parts and then adding to them the highlights, and as you see the highlights are pretty soft, not shiny. I'm also using a little bit of eraser tool and sometimes soft brush for adding some highlights on those parts, yeah. Then I'm blending a little bit some of the highlights, added more darker colors, and it's kinda done. On the next stage we're going to add more interesting details to our surfaces, and it could be some additional scratches, dents, like not very visible details, and also the surface darker light information, yeah, like some gradients, everything that will make it look more interesting, more vivid, and with some depth effect with those darker colors under the highlights that we paint. It adds really some nice effect to our surfaces, and they are looking not that flat. And also under some scratches, making some depth, a bit more damage, and so on. Also blending a little bit, so it's not super hard straight lines. I'm also using the brush semi-hard, semi-soft. For me it's easier to work for these details using this brush. And then I just blend a little bit, add some scratch, some shadow for it. This is something that can make your work look very different and more detailed, more interesting. And believe me, this small difference in the surface details will bring your work really to the next level than just flat surfaces that a lot of people's painting, also when they just starting. And now it's time for very final highlights, polishing, and we're gonna make those very shiny areas on our model. And I'm using a hard brush here, doing some color blending with much more brighter colors, and those are all on separate layers, so if need we can adjust it with a razor tool with the soft one, so we are not seeing a lot of those connections that we painted. But I enjoy when there's some texture details left after the hard brush. It gives some very interesting look, like some dents on the metal, and some very interesting things. And we're adding those all around where we want the most shine, preparing these surfaces for being the most shiny ones. Just color blending here and also a little bit here, then the eraser tool, adjust it, and for this one we need to make it much more. That's going around at least like half of the surface, and this shine should receive more light there. And now we can start with the gem. I'm adding some more ambient around the gem, additional color to it with dark blues, and now I'm painting reflections on our gem. And reflections almost always go from lower part, the most darkest one, then some glossy effect on it where the light hits it and light goes through it and reflects it on the lower part, and the lower part have more interesting hues as you see here, and also a little bit of damage, and that's kinda it. And the last step going to be the color dodge pass. So I created a new layer, set it on color dodge. I choose the very bright white color and the smallest soft brush, and just doing those super shiny things. And it's done. Hope you guys liked the video. Don't forget to leave a comment, it's really very important for me and YouTube algorithms. Thanks for watching, peace.